Exposed, the haunted highway patrol rules in San Diego that will terrify every officer on duty. The night air hung thick over Highway 101, a dark ribbon stretching out like an ominous serpent, swallowing cars whole as they left behind the glimmering lights of San Diego. Officer Jake Ramirez, a seasoned highway patrol officer, had spent years assuring the safety of these roads. But as he answered a call about a series of mysterious disappearances, an unsettling dread took root in his gut. Ex-cop turned neighborhood watch terrorizing the area. Jake scoffed at the dispatcher's words. Yet, as he cruised through the lonely stretch of highway, the familiar coastal views morphed into an eerie battleground veiled by shadows. Every flicker of movement outside his headlights sent chills racing down his spine. Memories of childhood camping trips faded, replaced by a reluctance to confront what lay ahead. As he arrived at the isolated community, he immediately felt the palpable tension. Residents, their faces etched with fear, exchanged hushed whispers about a former officer, someone they had once trusted now cloaked in a mantle of sinister power. Jake listened intently as they spun tales of a malevolent presence, almost urban folklore, hinting at vengeful spirits punishing those who betray oaths of protection. Folklore, Jake murmured under his breath. Pure superstition. But was it? He began his shift filled with doubt, the radio crackling with static that seemed to mirror the unsettling murmurs of the locals. Jake. The voice echoed, barely breaking through the fuzz, sending a jolt through him. His heart raced. Every mile he patrolled, he inched closer to where each disappearance buried its teeth in his mind, the very spot where he feared a family member could be the next victim. Time dragged, a suffocating blanket of dread wrapping around him tighter than his uniform. Jake's normal vigilance felt warped. He stopped suddenly, drawn by a suspicious car parked beside an overgrown lot cloaked in shadows. The atmosphere pulsed, electric, as he hesitated. Inside, he detected an unspeakable horror, flickering shadows playing tricks on his vision. He needed to go deeper, to peel back the layers surrounding these tales. As he made his way toward a door adorned with peeling paint, a growing sense of something watching him surged. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each question he posed to the suspicious neighbors, their tight lips and darting eyes only heightened his uncertainty. Was it fear, or were they shielding something deeper? The sense of trust he relied upon fractured. An unsettling feeling gripped him as though the shadows had grown teeth, watching, waiting, but nothing could prepare him for the confrontation that awaited with the ex-cop. As their eyes locked, Jake saw a flicker of something dark and ancient. The whispers crescendoed in his mind, the shadows surged forward. He realized it wasn't just a mystery to solve, it was a haunting he had unwittingly stepped into. In that moment of chilling clarity, he trembled, the lines of friend and foe blurring. The wailing voices echoed louder. The cold sweat slicked his palms, and he understood sometimes, the most terrifying truths lurk where the badge glimmers. And with each heartbeat, the question loomed larger, who was really protecting whom on this cursed stretch of highway? The peeling paint of the door groaned as Jake pushed it open. A heavy darkness swallowed him whole, swallowing the chilling whispers of the night outside. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of mildew and something more sinister that tugged at the back of his throat. Jake fumbled for his flashlight, the beam flickering hesitantly across the cluttered room. Objects lay strewn about, old furniture, rusty tools, pictures turned face down. He stepped cautiously, his instincts screaming that he was intruding on a nightmare. A sudden sound, a soft, almost indiscernible whimper scraped against his ears, lifting the hairs on the back of his neck. "Hello?" he called, his voice shaking. The echo of his own voice felt like an uninvited guest intruding upon the heavy silence. No response came, only the persistent rustle of something moving in the shadows. He tightened his grip on the flashlight, the beam quivering as he scanned the corners, desperately searching for the source of the sound. As he edged deeper, the floorboards creaked ominously beneath him. His heart thundered, matching the electric hum of fear that coursed through his veins. Where were you, Jake? What were you thinking? The voices of the townspeople clawed back into his mind, whispers of things they had seen, warnings they had given. Suddenly, he spotted movement in his periphery. Turning sharply, he shone his light toward the corner, illuminating a figure crouched and shivering. A woman, her eyes wide and unseeing, her clothes torn as if she had escaped an unforgiving grasp. She seemed to float in and out of the light, and panic seized him. It was as if she was both present and somehow not there at all. Are you okay? His voice trembled as he knelt before her. The woman's lips parted but no sound emerged, only a desperate stare that spoke of pain unending. He reached out a hand, uncertain, afraid to touch what could vanish at any moment, and then it hit him, a stench like rotting flesh wafted through the air, heavy and nauseating. Something buried here, he could feel it. Jake realized he had to act. We need to get you out of here, he said, glancing back toward the door, the exit suddenly feeling farther away than it should, but just as he leaned in to help her, a shadow sprang from the depths of the room, a grotesque figure that seemed to ripple with darkness. The ex-cop. The tale sprinted back to his mind, the betrayal, the gruesome retribution. Jake's breath caught in his throat. This man was no longer the protector of their community, he was the embodiment of every fear whispered in the dark. You didn't heed the warnings, the figure rasped, his voice crawling like a serpent. You should have left this place alone. Jake stumbled backward, the flashlight trembling in his grasp, glinting off the wild-eyed stare of the woman who now seemingly vanished into the shadows. Panic rose, hot and fresh, and Jake's instincts screamed to flee, but his feet felt glued to the ground as the threat lunged forward. That a piercing scream cut through the heavy night air, echoing like a warning shot that set his mind racing. Was it her? Or was it the specter of what he had unknowingly awakened? The shadows closed in around him, thickening into a web of despair. Run, Jake. Don't look back. A voice barked, cutting through the oppressive darkness, and just like that, he turned and bolted, the suffocating shadows clawing at his back. Heart hammering, the world blurred as he sprinted toward the exit, the weight of unseen eyes bearing down upon him as the terror clawed at his heels. Was it possible to escape what was meant to ensnare him? Outside, the night enveloped him in a cocoon of chilling whispers. His phone buzzed violently in his pocket, a call from a name he recognized but didn't want to answer. This is bad, Jake said, the voice, heavy with urgency. You need to get out of there. They're coming. Who? Who was coming? He felt the all-consuming dread settle in again. Something was waiting just beyond the shadows, something he had yet to uncover. But as he turned back toward the door, a sharp chill coursed through him, hinting at more than just the lingering shadows of the ex-cop. What had he unearthed that night? The essence of horror had settled deep beneath the surface, and Jake knew he was only beginning to scratch at the truth. Jake stumbled into the cool night air, gasping for breath. The darkness felt alive around him, crawling with unseen threats. He could still hear the ghostly remnants of the woman's scream, a haunting melody that resonated deeply in his bones. He had to know what he had uncovered, but terror gnawed at his resolve. His phone buzzed again, pulling him from his spiraling thoughts. The same number flashed across the screen. With a shaky hand, he swiped to answer, his voice barely a whisper. What do you mean they're coming? Jake, the voice on the line was frantic. It belonged to Maya, a friend who had warned him about the old police station on the outskirts of town. You shouldn't have gone there. If the ex-cop is after you, you need to hide. Hide? From what? Anxiety twisted in his stomach as he glanced back at the door he had just escaped. The shadows loomed silently, and in that silence, something churned malevolently. They're not just ghosts, Jake. He's a vessel for them, Maya continued, voice cracking under the weight of fear. What you found in there, it's connected. There are things they don't want you to see, things they'll do anything to protect. You need to. A sudden sound, a rustling behind him, cut her off. Heart pounding, Jake turned to see a dark figure slinking from the shadows of the doorway he had barely escaped. His stomach dropped as the familiar silhouette emerged, the ex-cop, an expression twisted with fury and anguish, eyes narrowed like a predator stalking its prey. Jake's instincts kicked in, he couldn't stand there. He bolted down the desolate street, his breath coming in sharp gasps as he ran. The pavement felt uneven, the moonlight casting jagged shadows that danced crazily around him. He could hear the ex-cop's footsteps behind him, heavy and deliberate, echoing in rhythm with his own racing heart. "Don't you understand, Jake?" The voice taunted, echoing through the creeping fog, twisted and distorted. "You think you can run from the truth? It always catches up." The words stung with bitter clarity. He was in over his head, a rabbit caught in a snare he didn't even know existed. Each step felt like plunging deeper into the pit of despair. He reached a fork in the road. One path led back toward the safety of town, the other veered into the unknown, an unmarked dirt road swallowed by thick trees that he hesitated, fear wrestling with the desire to escape. As if sensing his indecision, a shrill laughter erupted from the ex-cop, haunting and low. "Choose wisely, boy. Running toward the light or into the dark, either way, you'll have your reckoning." Jake took a deep breath, forcing the dread aside, and darted into the thick woods. Branches clawed at his skin, biting into his arms as he pushed through the dense underbrush. Panic coursed like fire through his veins. How had it come to this? Each snap of a twig sent him into a panic, a whirlwind of memories flooding his mind, stories of the lost and damned who had stumbled into the very same woods, never to return. That he paused, heart hammering in his chest, listening. Was that the wind, or did he hear whispers among the leaves? Jake, it felt familiar, like the call of the woman. He closed his eyes against the encroaching darkness. But there it was again, closer now, almost pleading. "Help us know." He had to move. Had to escape this nightmare. With renewed determination, he pressed on. The whispers intensified, swirling around him, tangling into the very fabric of the night. Suddenly, a figure materialized ahead, partially obscured by the mist. A flicker of hope ignited. Was it the woman? He strained his eyes to see better, heart racing for salvation or doom. Then he heard it, a chilling laugh echoing behind him, drawing closer, colder, and more familiar than before. "Jake, you can't escape." "No one does." Desperation clawed at him, and he could feel the shadows closing in, every breath heavy with dread. He didn't know who he was running from, or what awaited him, but one thing was clear: he had stepped into a hell he couldn't understand, and the truth was more dangerous than he had ever imagined. But just as he was about to turn back, the figure stepped into the dim light. What he saw shattered his entire reality. Who are you?" Jake gasped, freezing in place. As the moon illuminated the figure's face, the revelation sent ice through his veins. Was this the truth he had been so fervently seeking, or the darkest nightmare of all? Jake stumbled backward as the figure stepped into the light. His heart raced, each pulse thudding louder than the last. The face before him was twisted, a mix of horror and familiarity. It was disheveled, eyes wide with an unfathomable despair. "No, it can't be," he blurted out, his breath catching in his throat. "Jake," the figure's voice trembled, each syllable soaked in agony. "You need to listen to me. You're in grave danger." It was the woman from the police station. Her presence twisted his stomach into knots. "But how? I thought you were." His voice trailed off, the words caught like thorns. "I was imprisoned, Jake. Trapped in that hellish place," she replied, her eyes darting around as though the shadows themselves were alive, creeping in closer. "He's not just hunting you. He wants to keep the truth buried, and I'm just one of many victims." A freezing chill washed over him, pooling dread in his bones. "Why now? What truth?" "The documents you found, they hold the key. They're linked to murders, cover-ups. The department and him, they're all in it together. We were silenced to preserve their lies. If he finds you suddenly," a crash echoed from the shadows. The ex-cop was closing in, the woods vibrating with his malevolent energy. The woman's eyes widened in horror. You have to run, Jake. He'll never stop. You have to warn everyone. But Jake stood transfixed. No. I need to help you. Tell me how to set you free. She shook her head furiously, her voice trembling. You can't. Even if I am here, I'm trapped between worlds. Just go now. Don't be his next victim. Before he could respond, something rough and cold gripped his arm from behind. He turned to find himself face to face with the ex-cop, eyes gleaming with a mix of rage and vengeance. You still want to play hero, boy? He hissed, twisting Jake's arm painfully. You don't know the horrors you're inviting. Jake's instincts flared, and he jerked free, sprinting deeper into the woods, the sounds of pursuit thundering close behind him. The landscape became a blur of shadows, but his mind raced, reeling from the woman's desperate warning. The whispers surrounded him once more, the trees seemed to rustle with ethereal voices imploring him to turn back, to leave this cursed place. Jake, help us, don't let them take you. They blended into the cacophony of found echoes, tugging at his sanity. Ahead, a clearing opened, moonlight splashing across the ground like a broken mirror. He hesitated only for a second before charging forward. What now? Where could he go? Then he saw it, a dilapidated cabin, jagged and menacing, as if it had sprung from the very earth to serve as a prison. Maybe there were answers inside. Maybe there was a way to uncover the truth that in his peripheral vision, he caught a flicker of movement. The woman's ghostly form was there, urging him toward the cabin. In there, you'll find what you need. She cried, her voice almost a whisper through the cacophony. Jake lunged toward the door, staggering as he heard the ex-cop's voice ripple through the air, taunting him closer. Don't think you can hide from fate, boy. You've awakened something that should have remained asleep. He flung the door open, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The inside was dark, the air thick with the scent of decay. He stepped in, shutting the door behind him just as he heard the heavy footsteps nearing. Inside the cabin, shadows danced wildly under the flickering light, but something on the wall caught his eye. Papers stacked in disarray, old photos hanging crookedly. The walls felt alive, pulsing with memories that needed liberation. The pit of dread expanded within him as he realized he had stepped into something deeper than he ever anticipated. What did you find, Jake? The ex-cop's voice echoed through the door, and he knew time was running out. He felt it in his bones. And as he moved closer, a chilling revelation washed over him. The photos, the files, every face was familiar. They were the faces of missing people tied to his town, and their eyes were screaming for justice. Jake turned, the shadows breathing around him, but did he have the courage to confront the darkness? Unlock the truth, Jake, the woman's voice pierced through the chaos, but would he unleash the horrors contained within? He had a decision to make. But would he emerge victorious, or would he become part of the darkness he sought to expose? The air thickened inside the cabin, wrapping around Jake like a suffocating shroud. His heart raced as he took a step closer to the wall, the flickering light casting grotesque shadows that danced like phantoms. Each face staring back from the photographs seemed to whisper secrets long buried, secrets that needed to rise from the grave. Can you hear them, Jake? The woman's voice echoed softly, almost ethereally, threading through the tension. They want justice, they want to be remembered. It's up to you now. He tried to steady his breathing, but the fear clawed at his insides. Each snapshot showcased a life cut short, children, parents, friends. And their hollow eyes pierced through him with questions unanswered. The ex-cop. He knows, doesn't he? More than you can imagine, she replied, her voice trembling. He's part of it all. Each victim was silenced to protect the ones who took their lives. Jake's thoughts whirled like a tornado. He recognized one of the faces, a girl from his high school. Samantha. She had vanished years ago, her name lost to a thin flyer on a lamp post. Suddenly, the fear turned into a burning anger. Why hadn't he fought harder back then? Why had he let the world forget her? But there was no time to linger. The sound of relentless footsteps thundered outside, the ex-cop prowling with a predator's intent. Jake's pulse quickened as he fumbled with the papers scattered at his feet. Among them, he discovered a weathered folder labeled with the forgotten date of one of the most notorious murders long buried in the town's messy past. "Read it, Jake," the woman urged, her tone laced with urgency. "It's the key to stopping him." "You must." A crash broke through the heavy silence, followed by a guttural curse from outside. Panic ignited within him like wildfire. "I can't let him in," Jake shouted, searching frantically for a way to barricade the door. He flipped a table against it, heart pounding in sync with the booming knocks that reverberated through the cabin. "Listen to me, Jake," the woman cried, her image flickering like a dying light bulb. "You have to confront him. It's the only way to set us all free. Confront him." He felt it in his gut, the chilling realization that facing the ex-cop was akin to inviting madness to dine. But the truth thrummed around him like a heartbeat, stronger than fear. There was a darkness here, but he needed to become the light, to expose whatever crawled in the shadows. Jake inhaled deeply, steadied his shaking hands, and plunged deeper into the folder, quickly scanning for names and evidence. With each line, he felt the weight of the world pressing down. Murmurs of cover-ups, brave officers silenced by fear, a tightly sealed lid on the town's twisted history. The door rattled as the force pressed against it. "You can't hide, Jake. I'll find you." The ex-cop roared, anger spilling into the air like venom. Everything spiraled. The woman's desperate cries became a siren's call. "You have to do it. You must face him. Only then can the truth come out into the light." Jake felt a surge of resolve cutting through his fear. He would expose the truth. But as he turned to confront the door, it burst open violently, flinging the table aside. The ex-cop stood framed in the doorway, a menacing figure. His eyes glinted like knives in the dark. "You thought you could outsmart me?" he sneered, stepping forward, the shadows congealing around him like a cloak of despair. "You've opened a door that should have remained shut." Jake's breath hitched as he braced himself for the inevitable confrontation. "You're going to answer for what you've done," he shouted, raising the folder like a shield. The ex-cop's smile twisted into something grotesque. "You think you can save them? You're just another name on my list." As the two locked eyes, an electric tension filled the air, as if the very fabric of the night was holding its breath. And then came a howl, a ghastly sound from the depths of the woods, a howl that could unsettle even the most frozen of hearts. "Jake," the woman murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're running out of time. They're not the only ones who've been kept in the dark." Reality blurred. Shadows shifted ominously, the hairs on Jake's neck prickling. He knew then that whatever darkness lurked beyond the cabin walls was more than he had prepared to face. What else had awakened alongside him? What other truth was lying dormant in the night? And as Jake took a defiant step forward, he understood one chilling truth as the darkness closed in around him. The terrifying discovery was just beginning. Jake felt every muscle coil with tension as the ex-cop stepped forward, his presence a dark storm cloud hanging over the fading light of the cabin. The echoes of laughter buried in the photographs turned to screams in Jake's mind, begging for release. "Let them go," Jake shouted, forcing sound through clenched teeth. The rage was rising, fueled by the memories of lost lives. Samantha's face flashed before him again, her eyes pleading. He clutched the folder tighter, feeling its rough edges bite into his palm. The ex-cop chuckled, a low, chilling sound that sent shivers through Jake's spine. "You think shouting will scare me? Think again." He stepped forward, the shadows shifting around him like a living thing. "I'm not scared of you," Jake snapped, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. Backing away from the tightening wall of darkness, he felt the cold breath of desperation at his neck. "Then maybe you're just a fool," the ex-cop sneered, his eyes narrowing. "Your little folder won't do you any good. You've stumbled into a graveyard, and you're the only one here unburied. Suddenly, the howling voice from the woods pierced through the tension like a knife, mingling with the reality of the moment. Something was lurking outside, something wretched and hungry. Jake, he knows. The woman's voice trembled, desperately trying to warn him. You have to trust the truth. He remembered the stories he had heard growing up about the ex-cop turned monster. A protector's badge twisted into a weapon of manipulation. Fear trickled down his spine like ice. There were more bodies in this town's past than just those in the papers. He sensed that something was waiting, ready to pounce. That a deafening crash echoed in the night as something heavy slammed against the cabin wall, rattling the old structure. They're not just after you, the woman insisted, urgency rising in her voice. Whatever is out there wants justice too. The walls seemed to shake with her words. Shadows flickered violently, and for a moment, Jake was blinded by a strobe of static energy dancing beneath the surface of reality. The ex-cop staggered back, slightly caught off guard by the raw energy popping around them. Fools! You think this thing cares about you? He growled, fists clenched at his side. You're merely another trigger for what sleeps below. With that, he lunged forward, and instinct jolted through Jake's body. He ducked, feeling the rush of air as the ex-cop missed his target. Outside, the howl grew louder, a cacophony of voices demanding retribution. Each sound carved at Jake's resolve. Expose him, Jake. She cried, desperation spilling over. The truth will set us all free. His mind raced. The folder had information, but how far did it go? Did it hold power beyond mere words, or was it just a diary of death? Either way, it was his last grip on sanity. He gathered the courage and thrust the papers toward the ex-cop. You're done. The world will see you for the monster you are. A flicker of hesitation crossed the ex-cop's face, but it disappeared quick as a flash. He laughed, dark and growling. Shocking, is it? He raised a hand. Shades of pale light danced along the edges. They never believed them, never believed you. Realization hit, shaking Jake to his core. No. You can't take them too. His voice caught in his throat, as he realized the ex-cop planned to silence everything him, the truth, all of it, and, in that harrowing moment, the shriek from the depths of the woods transformed into a human cry, hauntingly familiar, painfully close. It was Samantha, her voice a siren drowning in anguish. The ex-cop's eyes widened with a sinister thrill. You brought them back, boy. They're here for you. You can't save them or yourself. Jake stumbled back, heart racing as the shadows engulfed the cabin, the fabric of reality fraying at the edges. He had walked into a trap set long ago, and now, the dark history of this town threatened to swallow him whole. He could feel them all. The lost souls, the anger, the despair, all converging. The walls felt alive with whispers, secrets piercing through his thoughts, demanding to break free. Then, with a resounding crack, the lights flickered and went out. Darkness enveloped everything, and Jake could hear ragged breaths, his own mingling with those who had once lived. Was this the end? Or just the beginning of a hunt that would bleed into his very soul? The howl rose, echoing the lost hopes. Jake swallowed hard, the shadows creeping closer, pulling him into their embrace. What awaited him in the dark? Would he be strong enough to confront the past, or would he, too, be claimed by the night? Jake's heartbeat thudded in his ears, drowning out the whispers that slithered through the darkness. The shadows thickened, closing in like a vice, as if the cabin itself were alive, hungry for his fear. Every breath felt like a labor, tension coiling tighter with each shuddering inhale. Jake, the woman's voice echoed, distorted like it was trapped in a warped radio signal. Keep holding on. But how? A flicker of hope felt fragile, like a candle in a storm. He needed to see, to escape. Blinking into the blackness, he felt the edges of the folder slip from his grasp, a cruel twist of fate. The papers fluttered to the ground, lost to the void. There was no choosing the truth now. The truth was all around him, clawing, gnashing, screaming. Clever boy, the ex-cop said, the malice of his voice a dark caress. You think they're here to save you? You're the bait. Outside, the howl crescendoed again, a ghastly sound weaving through the walls. It morphed from a distant terror to something more chilling, filled with recognition. Samantha. The realization struck like a fist to the gut. She was close. But how many souls were trapped beyond her reach? How many were crying for justice? Stop! Jake shouted, feeling the weight of despair crushing his chest. What do you want from me? To watch, the ex-cop replied, his voice dripping with sadistic glee. To savor the sweet taste of your downfall. They want a reckoning, and you're the key to open that door. The shadows roared to life, snapping and crackling with energy, threatening to swallow him whole. Desperation twisted into determination as he forced himself to scan the room, searching for anything, an escape, a weapon, a flicker of truth. His fingers brushed against the smooth wood of the table, a glimmer of moonlight revealing a glint of silver. A knife? Yes. He grasped it tightly, his fingers wrapping around the hilt. I want to let you take me. As if mocking his resolve, the lights flickered back on, momentarily banishing the shadows to a distant corner. But the sight that met his eyes turned his blood cold. Faces swirled in the dim light, pale and sickly, mouths open in silent screams, their eyes hollow voids filled with unresolved pain. The lost souls, trapped like ghosts in a horror he couldn't grasp. Each gaze bore witness to a violent history. You released them, the ex-cop hissed, a snarl creeping into his voice. You think they thank you? No. I want to let them drown in your darkness. With adrenaline surging, Jake lunged at the ex-cop, knife poised. But the air around him thickened, and the shadows surged back, coiling around the figure like serpents. The ex-cop was no longer flesh and blood, he was a monstrous silhouette twisted beyond recognition, feeding off the fear in the room. Fool! The ex-cop laughed, stepping aside with a speed that defied reason. Your blade can't cut through what's already dead. Jake felt his spirits plummet, but he couldn't allow despair to consume him. The blade was a symbol. He had to believe, to fight. With a fierce cry, he slashed at the darkness, where the whispers converged into a cacophony of rage, and then, like a thunderclap, the screams exploded in his mind, a tidal wave of agony crashing against him. Fight, Jake. The woman urged, her voice piercing through the chaos. Clutching the knife, he plunged it toward the ground, where the shadows writhed, and with every ounce of strength, he wielded it like a sword of truth, a desperate beacon against the night. The cabin trembled, the floorboards cracked beneath the shifting weight of secrets long buried. Suddenly, the howl erupted again, but this time the voices joined in an unholy chorus, a mesh of anger, betrayal, yearning. It sang to him. Find her. They pleaded. Bring justice. With renewed purpose, Jake raised his eyes to face the ex-cop, catching a glimpse of something shifting behind him, a figure moving through the shadows. A silhouette emerged. It was Samantha, her expression twisted between hope and horror. Jake, she whispered, a tether in the chaos. Could he save her? Was there still time to escape there? Grim fate. As the shadows lunged again, their malice swirling like a storm, it all came down to this. To fight with everything he had left, or to succumb. The knife trembled in his grasp as uncertainty wrapped him like a noose. What awaited him in the heart of the nightmare? Would he become part of the past, or rewrite the narrative of the lost souls? Jake's breath hitched as the darkness leaned in closer. Samantha's form wavered in the gloom, her fragile light flickering like a distant star threatened by an encroaching storm. Jake, listen. You have to focus. They're coming. The ex-cop's laughter reverberated through the room, a haunting reminder of the dread that loomed over them. You think that blade will save you? It's nothing but a plaything in this game. You'll never escape. But Jake wouldn't give in. He gripped the knife, feeling its cold weight settle into his palm with a fierce determination. I want to let you take us, he shouted, fighting against the rising tide of dread that in an instant, shadows surged forth like tidal waves crashing into a shore merging, ripping apart as if alive with intent. The blurred faces of tortured spirits surrounded him again, their silent screams echoing like a dreadful symphony. Disoriented, he stumbled back, his heart racing. But Samantha's eyes locked onto his, pulling him back from the brink. "Stand your ground," she urged, her voice steady despite the chaos. The ex-cop's monstrous form loomed, a black mass twisting into horrific shapes, desperation manifesting. With a battle cry, Jake plunged the knife forward, targeting the encroaching darkness. The blade sliced through the air, but instead of ripping into flesh, it met the cold void with a bone-chilling resistance, as though the darkness pushed back, testing his resolve. He staggered but held his ground, shouting, "I'll fight for you. For all of you." The dagger's edge shimmered, gathering light from the surrounding gloom. The shadows faltered, their grip on him loosening just enough that he could see Samantha's face now fully illuminated, tense and terrified yet filled with the fire of hope. "Use it, Jake. The knife is a key to their freedom." She pointed toward the cursed entity behind her. The ex-cop seethed, his form rippling with anger. "You can't save them. You're a fool, thinking your choice matters. Let go of them." Jake howled, desperation shifting to fury. He lunged toward the ex-cop, the darkness biting at his heels. The blade sank deep into the wall, the energy flaring around him like fireworks in the night. A pulse of light exploded from the knife where it touched the wood. Suddenly, wails erupted, drowning out the ex-cop's laughter with a chorus of agony and anger transformed into liberation, and then the room exploded with light. For a fraction of a second, Jake felt weightless, detached from the pain and screams, enveloped in a cocoon of warmth and clarity. The lost souls began to shimmer, their forms glowing with ethereal beauty, breaking the chains of despair that bound them. "No! You can't leave me!" shrieked the ex-cop, his voice cracking like ice breaking apart. The shadows writhed violently, desperate and chaotic, as they were forced to yield. The walls of the cabin trembled, flesh of the building unraveling as the lost souls fled into the light, each whispering their own gratitude, each leaving behind a piece of the suffering that had long haunted this place. "Jake! We have to go!" Samantha shouted, breaking the spell, and he turned to her, heart racing. But in his brief moment of triumph, he felt the pull of darkness shifting again, clawing, desperate to reclaim its prize. The ex-cop reformed before them more furious and twisted, the embodiment of that darkness. His eyes gleamed like burning coal, and he lunged forward. The cabin shook violently as Jake and Samantha turned to the doorway, their only chance of escape. He pulled her close, the light still flickering around them, illuminating the way. Would the door hold against the fury unleashed behind them? "Run!" Jake yelled, hurtling toward the exit, the knife still shining, a beacon of hope. But just as they reached the threshold, the last tendril of shadow grasped at Jake's ankle. It pulled him back, the ex-cop's voice filling the air with malignant triumph. "You'll never leave. This is where your story ends." With a surge of strength, Jake slashed at the shadow coiling around him, but the darkness was vicious, each moment a fight against despair and fate. Would they escape, or would the shadows claim them, forever binding them to a horror that should have been buried long ago? A pulse of energy rippled through the air, warring against the pulling darkness. What was it? Would the knife be enough? The knife trembled in Jake's grip as the darkness tightened its hold. Sweat beaded on his forehead, and his heart thundered loud enough to drown out the ex-cop's malicious cackle. "This isn't just about you, kid." The shadowed figure bellowed, twisting grotesquely as it advanced. "You've already lost." Samantha's eyes were wide with fear, but there was something resilient behind them. "Jake! Focus. You have to let the knife channel the light. It's your only chance." Gritting his teeth, Jake yanked the knife free from the wall. The glow pulsed around him like a heartbeat, illuminating the creaking cabin. He looked at Samantha, their hands momentarily clasped as he poured all his determination into the blade. "We're getting out of here. Together. With a roar, he swung the knife, slicing through the darkness that enveloped him. The shadows bucked and writhed, screeching as if they felt pain, but the grip around his ankle only tightened, pulling him down. Foolish boy. The ex-cop snarled, black smoke billowing around him, blurring the creature's features into an abominable collage. You'll never overpower me. I've kept this place alive with terror for decades. Jake stumbled, his footing slipping. The reality of their impending doom crashed down around him, mirroring the chaos of the cabin that felt alive with rage. I'll make you pay for this. He shouted, his voice sending echoes ricocheting off the splintered walls. No. You will pay. The ex-cop lunged forward, and at that moment, all the air was sucked from the room, chilling Jake to the bone. Shadows danced violently at the edges of his vision. He could sense the desperation both his own and those of the countless souls entwined in this evil web. Rallying his spirit, Jake raised the knife high. I won't give up. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the blade, forcing the darkness to recoil like it was water and the knife was aflame. The energy surged through Jake's veins, a primal instinct guiding him. He felt the rush of warmth and power. Summoning every ounce of courage, he hurled the knife toward the ex-cop. The knife sailed through the air like a comet, striking the ex-cop square in the chest. For an agonizing second, time stood still. The figure paused mid-lunge, eyes wide, disbelief etched onto what was left of its twisted face. Then the room ignited. White-hot light engulfed everything, spilling from the knife in rippling waves. Screams echoed, voices intertwined in a cacophony of despair turning to hope. The darkness was pushed back, receding into the corners of the cabin. Jake and Samantha shielded their eyes, feeling warmth and renewal grip them, but as the echoes of anguish faded, a chilling realization filled the air. The ex-cop didn't vanish. Instead, pieces of him clung to the edges of the brilliance, dark bits splintering away like shattered glass. In the midst of the fading light, his laughter transformed deeper, more malevolent than before. You think a little light can stop me? The ex-cop howled, voice reverberating as the light flickered unevenly. I thrive on fear. You fall back into despair. Panic gripped Jake's heart as he scanned for an exit. Samantha. He yelled, tugging her hand, but she was rooted to the spot, eyes locked ahead, frozen with fear. Jake, the floor. She whispered, terror creeping into her voice. The wood beneath them began to pulse with darkness, sabotage threatening their only escape. In that moment, Jake felt the shadows flutter like dark wings, circling them, feeding on fear, intensifying with each second. We have to go. Now. As he pulled Samantha upward, darkness erupted, clawing at their backs. With no time left, he dove through the door, dragging her with him, but the shadows surged, relentless, yawning wide like a hungry mouth. Would they escape the grasp of these insatiable voices? Or would they be devoured, trapped in an eternal loop of terror? The forest outside the cabin felt alive as Jake and Samantha burst back into the reality of moonlight and whispered trees. Relief flooded through him for just a moment. The darkness followed, though, like a predator drunk on fear, coiling around the clearing with a vengeance. Keep moving. He shouted, pulling Samantha along as she stumbled beside him, her speed hindered by the shadows that clawed at their heels. Jake's mind raced, searching for an escape route. They needed to get to safety, but where? Look! Samantha cried, pointing ahead. In the distance, the faint glow of town lights flickered through the trees. They were so close, but the sound of heavy footsteps grew louder behind them. The ex-cop was relentless, furious, and filled with a dark energy that felt like ice creeping under Jake's skin. Run! Jake bellowed, adrenaline coursing hot through his veins as they barreled forward. The trees whipped past them, the night air thick with tension. Each snap of a twig echoed like a gunshot in his ears, heightening the horror of what was nipping at their heels. They didn't look back. Fear propelled them, but desperation fueled their stride. We can make it. Jake urged, sensing Samantha's exhaustion creeping in. Just a little further. As hope ignited in his chest, something sinister slithered through the branches, a foreboding presence like a dark cloud. You can't escape the truth. The ex-cop's voice sliced through the night, saturated with rage and contempt. You'll pay for what you've done. Suddenly, Jake's heart plummeted. A figure emerged from the underbrush, another shadow, hungry and haunting. Memories surged, victims lost, lives silenced. Samantha. Jake couldn't help but scream as he pushed her behind him protectively. The other figure, a child, with hollow eyes and a pleading expression, whispered, "Help us." The wails from the lost became loud and deafening, echoing through the trees, wrapping around them like a noose. Jake's heart raced. They were trapped in a crossfire between realms. No! He shouted, fury surfacing over the ice of fear. We won't be afraid anymore. Gathering every ounce of strength, he turned to Samantha, determination igniting their connection. We need to face him. We need to shine. Samantha's eyes met his, filled with resolve. Together, she said, strength rebounding in her voice, they faced the darkness together, and as the ex-cop lunged forward, shadows erupting in chaos, they held on to each other solidly. They raised their hands, channeling a surge of courage, fueled by the spirits of those who had cried for justice. We won't let you keep them anymore. Jake cried, clarity cutting through the encroaching gloom. In an instant, the air shimmered, a glow pulsing from their determined stares. The light swelled, banishing the shadows that had long suffocated the night. The shapes of the lost souls flickered to life around them, reinforced by their collective howl of defiance. You think this pitiful light can consume me? The ex-cop laughed, but the darkness in his eyes shifted, uncertainty flickering in his malice. The power of connection surged through Jake and Samantha, each heartbeat resonating with the desperate echoes of the lost. The shadows twisted violently, tearing apart as the ex-cop's form began to ripple and fragment. No! You can't! He screeched, panic lacing his voice. Justice! Jake roared, blending his conviction with the warmth of the light emanating from his heart. Unleashing all their energy, they propelled the glowing force forward. In that moment, the darkness bent and buckled, shielding its fading presence. It tore away like parchment in a fire, howling as the light consumed memories wrapped in fear. And then silence followed, a profound stillness as the glow erupted, splintering darkness into a cascade of minuscule fragments that scattered into the night. In the wake of the spectacle, the woods felt lighter, betraying a sense of peace finally dawning. Jake held his breath, scanning the grove as the night shifted around them. The lost souls surrounded them, flickering gently as they began to fade into starlit warmth. Thank you, their whispers floated through the air like a soft lullaby, a promise fulfilled by the courage found in two brave hearts. With a final glance, Samantha squeezed Jake's hand. We did it. She exhaled, tears of relief glistening in her eyes. The weight of the past began to lift, leaving behind an essence of hope, glimmering brighter than any shadow that dared cross their path again. As they stepped through the trees toward the welcoming lights of the town, Jake felt an invincible strength settle within his chest. Let us tell their story, Sam. Together. And so, they walked towards dawn, leaving behind the haunting echoes of a nightmare, the beginning of a new chapter, forged in courage, illuminating the path to healing and justice. This is it. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of showing support through these actions.